Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of State of the Nation. David, nice shirt you got on today, my friend.
Hey, likewise. Lots of colors in there.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to talk about these shirts in just a minute. We're going to talk about the announcements in just a minute as David gives you a tour of what's going on. Let me give you, if this is your first State of the Nation, here's what we do. We talk about what's going on in the Bankless Nation. We relate it to the big picture stuff, and we always like to drop some insights and action items. These episodes release every Tuesday on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to YouTube to catch them. And they release on Wednesday on the Bankless podcast. So you can check it out there too, if audio is more your thing. We're going to get into announcements in a little bit, but David, we should talk about our sponsors first. We've got a new one. Why don't you start with our new sponsor we're super excited about?
Yeah. This sponsor is absolutely fantastic. Gods Unchained. For those that are into like alternative, like instead of like investing in tokens and all this crazy DeFi stuff, there's also this other world going on where like digital scarcity and digital tokens can be leveraged for like a really awesome purpose. And so for those people that have played like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, this is that same concept, that same type of game, but layered onto like Ethereum and using the Ethereum backend to manage your cards. And so the cards in Gods Unchained are tokens, like all the other tokens on Ethereum, except they represent cards in the Gods Unchained game. And so it's absolutely fantastic. I've put in like 50, 100 hours into Gods Unchained, and they keep on iterating and making the thing like even sexier, even smoother. The graphics of that game are absolutely fantastic. But what I love about it is that like with my cards in my Ethereum wallet, my little tokens, I'm playing against somebody else's tokens on Ethereum through the Gods Unchained game. And so what's pretty cool about Gods Unchained is that you have provable scarcity of your cards, right? So when you open up a legendary card, you have assurances on the blockchain that there's not only going to be like any more than like 200 of these cards, right? And like that's not true for Blizzard's Hearthstone, and that's not true for Magic the Gathering. They can print them endlessly. But with Gods Unchained, you have assurances to how scarce your cards are. So if you are into a trading card game and you want to have that experience on Ethereum, check out Gods Unchained. Download the game. You don't have to buy cards to get started. You get started off with like the basic starter pack, and then you win games, and then you get more cards, and it's fantastic. So check them out at Gods Unchained.
Yep, godsunchained.com. We will include a link in the show notes. Also, longtime sponsor, friend of Bankless, AAVE. I want to tell you about AAVE a little bit. They are climbing up the leaderboard. I looked the other day, and they were at something like number 3 in terms of total value locked in DeFi. So they are a really interesting lending and borrowing protocol. So you can deposit DAI into the protocol. You can deposit other tokens into the protocol and start receiving interest on those tokens. You can also take out loans. They have fixed rate loans, in addition to variable loans. And fixed rate loans are pretty unique in DeFi. They're also like fast movers. So they're rolling out a ton of cool things. They're rolling out a credit type system pretty soon. And they've just released Avenomics, which is just wild. So this is their liquidity and token incentive model. And one of the things they're adding with Avenomics is this safety feature. So a portion of funds and ETH is actually going to secure the contracts and provide sort of an insurance for holders in the event of catastrophe. So check out Avenomics, check out AAVE, start using it. Try it out at aave.com. That's AAVE.com. David, let's get to announcements real quick. So we had Eric Voorhees on the podcast. Episode came out. Good. It was so good. Guys, just go check out that episode. Fantastic. And then tomorrow, we actually have a first. I think this is not just a first for Bankless, but this is like a first for crypto, maybe for podcasting in general. What's happening tomorrow, David?
Yeah, tomorrow we're getting Andre, creator of the Yearn YFI protocol, on the Bankless podcast. And why this is so crazy and so unique is not only exactly why Yearn and YFI are so unique in the sense that they launched in like the most fair and equitable way possible, but that Andre, the creator of this project, who didn't pre-mine any of the YFI tokens, which has done the first 10,000x out of any token ever. He didn't pre-mine any for himself, and he's letting the token owners govern whether he goes onto a podcast or not. And so as he made this announcement, he tweeted out, like, I've gotten a lot of requests for people to come on people's podcasts, and I'm only going to do it if the token holders say so. And so when I saw that tweet, I immediately rushed to the Yearn Finance governance page and submitted a proposal for Andre to come on the Bankless podcast, which passed in like flying colors, like 95% voted yes. And then Andre messages me and says, so I'm told I'm enslaved to you. So let me know when and where to show up for the interview. And so that time is tomorrow in the morning. And so we're recording with Andre, creator of the Yearn protocol, tomorrow morning, which is
wow. I wonder if he even wants to. Like, it's like he doesn't have a choice.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. He, by coin vote, he has to show up for the interview tomorrow, right? It's pretty it's pretty funny how that works. And I do think this is the first like interview podcast episode by coin vote.
That's very true.
We'll see how that goes. We've got a lot of interesting questions for him. Also releasing tactics on Bankless. So there's a DYDX tactic that you'll find that was released this morning. Check that out. It's about an ETH perpetuity. That's going to be pretty fun, I think, in this upcoming bull market that we've been talking about so much. Last thing I'll say is, do you know what August 27th is, David?
I don't know. Tell me, Ryan.
All right. So August 27th is when Bankless first started. So Bankless turns 1 year old as kind of a newsletter and kind of the genesis. And, I'm hopeful we can share some stats that day. But one of the things, when I started the newsletter with Bankless is I wanted to, by the first birthday, get to 10,000 subscribers, 10,000 people on the Bankless journey as part of the extended Bankless Nation. So we're getting close, but maybe we'll reveal some stats on that pretty soon. So tell your friends about Bankless. Let's see if we can hit those numbers and celebrate Bankless's birthday. David, gotta ask you the question I ask every single episode. You've been right on for the past 7 episodes. It's been scary accurate, actually. So what is the state of the nation today, David Hoffman?
The state of the nation is pumped.
Okay.
We are pumped in so many different ways. Ether price has pumped. It has just blown past expectations. People are pumped for that. The Ethereum Phase 0, right before we're recording this, the testnet just went live. So people are absolutely pumped for that. I'm pumped about these shirts, which we're about to talk about after this. There's just a lot of pumping going on. People are stoked. Prices are pumping. Pumping's all around us. It's a fantastic time.
Wait. Pumping is a bad thing though sometimes. Like, are you saying like pump as in a good thing in this context?
Yes. Yeah, pumped as in like prices are going up and we're all stoked about it. So sometimes pumping could be viewed badly, but not this time.
Yeah, so it feels like to me, it's like we've been talking about this for a long time. Honestly, we've been talking about this not just for months, we've been talking about this for years, that at some point the market would actually catch up with what's going on in Ethereum and what's going on with DeFi. And a huge portion of this just feels like the market catching up. Like, it's 2016. We haven't even seen 2017 yet. Still, the people coming into Bankless, the people watching this today, are mostly people that already know about crypto. We've got a whole new fresh crop of immigrants into the Bankless Nation to start onboarding, and they haven't even shown up yet. So I do feel like this is just a lot of catch up to all of the things we've been talking about over the past months and years.
Yeah, totally. So I've been getting text messages from friends like who are getting back into DeFi, back into Ethereum, but they were there with me back in like 2017, 2018. These are the friends that I made back in that cycle who like kind of went on and did their own thing. Yeah. But it's easy for them to come back, right? And they know who to talk to. Like, we're still waiting for that wave of like people that have never touched anything before. That hasn't happened yet. But like, as you were saying, there is no ever any fair value for Ether, for Bitcoin. No one knows what these things should be. And over time, I think it's fair to claim that like the price of these things on the secondary market oscillate around what they should be. Like 2017, Bitcoin and Ether were priced way too much. 2018 and 2019, they were priced way too low. And now it seems like we're kind of coming back to that mean, to that average.
Yeah.
And like the theory is like all previous bull markets, like you pass that average where you think it's about fair value, but then you just keep on going. Yeah. And that's what like a bull market mania is.
Guys, we said this before. These are fractals. Mm-hmm. We're like, people are like, oh, there'll be nothing like 2017 again. Like that was a one time. No, it's not a one time. I mean, it happened in multiple cycles with Bitcoin. It'll happen again. things will get overextended too. But right now we're not there. We're just approaching probably more lines along the lines of what the value should be. It's just a bit of catch up over the last 2 years of everything that's happened. David,
Absolutely.
first topic, man. I
Yeah.
know you are burning to talk about this. The shirts, what's going on? What are these things? What are we wearing today?
These shirts have been an idea of mine that I've always wanted to pull off in a while. So I made this graphic forever ago. Not this exact one. I kind of tweaked the size of the Ethereum logo, but this graphic debuted in my article, Ethereum, the money game landscape, where I talked about like all these applications on Ethereum are little games. Like Uniswap is a game, Compound is a game. And largely it's a game about stacking Ether, right? Like at the end of the day, Ethereum is a landscape for humans to compete with other humans, as well as computers to compete with other computers, as well as humans and computers to compete amongst themselves for Ether, right? And so Ethereum is like this money game landscape where Ethereum, Ether, the asset are the points. And so this is that. We have like a little outrun style like graphic with like, it's a landscape, right? It's like a grid and there are mountain ranges, peaks and valleys. And then there's the Ether logo in the background. And so it's all about the Ethereum as a physical landscape of competition for Ether, the points. And that's what is resembled in this fantastic shirt. And
dude, I just want to, I want to take a minute just to admire the shirt, the craftsmanship of the shirt. Like these things are like the fit is awesome. So I got mine on Thursday, David, and I opened up the package, right? And you know, you'd hyped it up. You said, look, this is a good shirt, but like you didn't tell me too much. I opened it, I put it on. It just felt perfect. Like the fit is exceptional. What material is this?
I have no idea.
It's just like, obviously it's not cotton, right? Like this is a super high quality shirt. Where did you first see these types of shirts?
Yeah, so the first time I saw these types of shirts where I got this idea came out of the ETH Denver conference, where they have very similarly graphicked up shirts, right? And so I found out who the manufacturer was. I reached out to them, got the details. They handed over them the graphic, and then it all fell out of that. And so we got 50 of these shirts produced. So there's only 50 of them. And 2 of them are already taken because me and Ryan got ours.
We pre-mined.
we pre-mined 2 shirts. So now there's only 48 left. And this is where we get into the concept of bankless seasons, bankless apparel seasons.
Ooh, okay. All right. What is this?
This is season 0. This shirt is season 0. And so bankless apparel seasons is a regular occurring release of some really cool piece of clothing, right? This shirt being the first one. And so this is going to be a reoccurring campaign, because what frustrates me is that in the crypto world, there's not really cool swag. Like we have these fantastic futuristic sci-fi crypto economic like protocols, and we don't have any good way to like wear them. Like people want to have wear a totem. They want to show their colors. They want to express themselves and their interests. And I just went on like a 5-minute tangent about like the metaphor behind this shirt. And I think that the bankless apparel seasons is like a vehicle for expressing these really complex things like in a shirt that you can wear and people can ask you about it and say, hey, what's that shirt? And like, oh, let me tell you about it. You shouldn't have asked that question because now I have 20 minutes of things to talk about. And so,
they're definitely gonna ask you about this shirt.
Definitely gonna ask.
Like, yeah, you can't go outside without being asked about this shirt specifically. It's a statement. It's super unique. Like the design is awesome. It's definitely and you can basically wear your colors, is what you're talking about. Wear your culture, everything we talk about in Ethereum and Bankless, the ability to take that outside of your house. If we ever get outside of our houses again.
Okay, so the way that this is going to work is this is a sale. And so we're posting this video up on YouTube later today. We also have a release going out on the Bankless newsletter. And once all those things are going to go out at once. And then 1 hour after that, after all these things get released at once, we are supplying all remaining 48 BAP tokens, BAP, Bankless Apparel. So BAP 0 for season 0. We are going to supply all remaining 48 BAP tokens to the Uniswap exchange. The links will be in the show notes for this video, also for the newsletter. And then you can go to Uniswap and purchase a token. And
all right, so we should get into this a little bit. I'm going to share my screen as you're talking, but keep talking.
Yeah, so you purchase a token off Uniswap, and then you burn it. You can burn it by sending it to the Genesis address of Ethereum. That's 0x00000. Or you can also, some wallets don't let you do that. So you can just change the last 0 for a 1 and that counts. But once you burn a token, that is you redeeming a token for a shirt. right? These are redeemable tokens. This is how you get one of the shirts. And again, there's only 48 left because Ryan and I already have two. And so you purchase a token, burn it, you email that transaction hash to apparel@banklesshq.com, and then we will coordinate with you about how to deliver your shirt wherever you are in the world. And so this is how we're distributing the BAP tokens. So they're on Uniswap, and this is like the redeemable token scarcity mindset. We're really into this idea of scarce apparel, and we're using the tools of Ethereum to enable like this scarce apparel project.
So back to scarce apparel really quick. We ran a couple bankless posts on this. Jacob from Zora wrote a post about redemption tokens, redeemable tokens. We'll include in the show notes to give you some context. And there've been these sort of scarce product releases a few times within Ethereum that have caught some headlines. Most notably, our friend RAC, right? So he did he's a friend of the nation. He's actually in the nation. So he is a Bankless member now. Here he is repping the Bankless swag, repping the Bankless shirt. And he released a token called Tape, right? And this was a token specific to a new album that he dropped. And it did really well. I think it was really successful. But basically, he dropped the token, issued it on Uniswap. And you could read this post for kind of what happened next and the details. But it's really similar to that idea, right? So you release a scarce token that represents some sort of real world item, and then people can purchase it on Uniswap. They can purchase it with ETH. And then once they have the token, they have the ability to redeem that for the item itself.
Yeah, I really think that these scarcity tools on Ethereum, like ERC20, and then also the infrastructure like Uniswap, Balancer, et cetera, that go also into the ecosystem, are really going to enable artists to do cooler things, right? And so RAC was able to kind of produce value for his fan base, his clientele, using Ethereum and using non-fungible tokens. And I think that like in the future of Bankless apparel seasons includes like the ability for future artists to contribute designs, and they will be rewarded with percentage of the tokens. So like I'm not a designer. I have basic Photoshop skills. This is actually a relatively easy graphic to make. Some designer who knows Photoshop better than me, or however you make these graphics, can produce even cooler, even better designs. And then we are going to let the Bankless Nation decide on which design will be in the next season. And then the winning artist who has their designs chosen will receive a percentage of the token. So it's a way for artists to like monetize, to receive value from their value that they produce. And they don't have to, like in the case of RIC, they don't have to get ripped off by a record label, or in the case of Bankless Seasons, like all of this stuff is managed for you. I think it's a really interesting way to return value back to artists with scarcity tools on Ethereum.
Yeah, absolutely. And spread the culture, right? That's what this is all about. I mean, we talked so much about Bankless and crypto being a cultural movement. A lot of people have seen it as a technology in the past. I mean, it's a social technology. This is a cultural movement. This is about like representing what you're doing and the journey that you're on. And if nothing else comes out of this whole experiment that we're doing, David, we've got this picture, which is, just let me say, it's amazing, sir. Is that you in front of the Seattle skyline there?
Yeah, that's a Seattle skyline. That's a couple blocks away from my house. I was thinking about perhaps a different word for the state of the nation was proud, because we're proud of how far we've come. And I think that picture represents that. So when you wear your Bankless season apparel, when you wear your BAPs Euro, you should be proud, because we're all here together. We've built something incredible, and we're taking it to the market.
All right, we're here to stack BAPs is kind of what you're saying, right, David?
Yeah, we're here to stack BAPs.
All right, so this is the post. I'm actually scrolling through the post that's going to be sent out. This is you'll receive this post by the time we publish the video. And this includes some more details about the BAP Zero sale. So again, all of these things are redeemable tokens, so they represent these shirts. And here's some details about the supply. Maybe, David, you should say just something about how we're doing the liquidity, because so we're putting 48 of these things in, right? Mm-hmm. But with those kinds of low numbers, mm-hmm. Uniswap has a pretty steep curve where by the way, these shirts start out like expensive, right? This is scarce apparel. Mm-hmm. This is not regular Bankless merch. We'll be launching.
They cost money to produce in the first place.
Yes, they cost money to produce. This is not regular Bankless merch. We'll have a separate merch store for non-scarce apparel with Bankless stuff. I know a bunch of people have asked about our Bankless tees that we typically wear in these. We'll have a separate store for that. But what happens when you deposit things into Uniswap in small quantities is the curve gets pretty steep. So it gets more and more expensive as more of these BAP zero tokens are taken out of the market. So what are we doing to kind of dampen that liquidity? Can you talk about the
Yeah,
phases?
totally. Yeah, so the first thing that we're doing is we're supplying all tokens to the Uniswap market. So we're giving the entire supply to the market. So they're with some DeFi tokens or ICO tokens, like they only give out 10% to the market, and then they have the remaining 90% like non-circulating. No, they're 100% circulating, 100% in the market, which is one way to like soften that curve, that incline of price go up when somebody buys a token. But then we're also committing to selling all of our available BAPs at a certain level, right? So when 50% of the BAPs are purchased, roughly 50%, 23 out of the 48, leaving 25. When 23 are sold, they will be roughly selling for 5 ETH a BAP. And what we're doing at that point is we are going to withdraw liquidity from Uniswap in order to sell BAP tokens back into Uniswap to keep that price suppressed until we have no more. Like, so David and Ryan are going to do our best to like keep that price at 5 ETH per BAP or lower until we have no more in our hands. And anyway, we have no more to sell. And then at that point, Bankless won't be making any more money, and all the tokens will be in the ecosystem, and we will have exited, and all tokens will be available for either redemption or selling back into Uniswap. So we're getting out of BAPs early, as early as possible at what we think is a fair rate, so that the remaining BAPs on the market can price themselves.
Yep, and we're not trading these things.
Yeah.
And the tokens, so the tokens that we have, the 2 shirts that we have, we went through the process, right? So we took those 2 tokens. Here's the address. So mail, like you can see all this stuff, obviously on chain. Here's the BAP token that I have in a Bankless test address here that I received, and this is me sending it to that ETH address to burn it. So it's burnt. It's gone with fire. It's gone.
48 left.
48 left. So, and yours is gone too. So there's just 48. And, we're just supplying the liquidity. We're not going to be trading these things. We have redeemed them. Now, what's super interesting is like, people don't have to redeem these things, right?
Yeah.
So they can buy them on Uniswap, and like at that point, it's kind of theirs to do with what they will. They have an option to redeem it, in which case we talked about how they do that, but they don't necessarily have to redeem it, which is interesting. I have no idea how that's going to play out.
Neither do I.
That's why markets are fun, right?
That's why this is a fun experiment. That's why we're calling it season 0, not season 1.
Yeah, exactly. So, another thing though is when Jacob wrote that Redeemable Tokens post, he talked about the utility of these tokens potentially in virtual worlds, right? So, for instance, I don't know how much time have you spent in like crypto voxels or Decentraland or
very little.
So I haven't spent a ton of time either, but like we're both gamers, right? So like we know the potential of those types of virtual worlds. And what I think is really interesting is with NFTs, you have the ability essentially to represent a digitally scarce good. Of course, you can redeem it for a physically scarce good, the Ethscape tee itself. But you can also like rep the shirt in crypto voxels or in Decentraland. And I feel very much like these virtual worlds are just a shadow of what they will become. It's very possible in the future that like the most value that comes from these sorts of scarce tokens, not these, but like maybe these, but other sorts of scarce tokens will actually come in virtual worlds, in-game experiences where you're doing it for the same reason you're doing it in the physical world, right? It's kind of repping your colors. It's, you mentioned the word, proud, right? It's something that you've earned and that you've purchased and that you want to showcase to the world. It's kind of a human, it's in human nature to like put on these sorts of displays and these sorts of social signals. So I think it could be really interesting in virtual worlds as well as that expands.
Yeah, totally. The virtual world side of Ethereum is very much kind of like the L2 world, where there's a lot of them and there needs to be some sort of like settling or some sort of convergence upon like which virtual world is going to be the thing that everyone onboards into. Maybe it's not even the ones that we currently have available to us. I wouldn't even say that the virtual worlds on Ethereum are even closely to the point that like L2s are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't actually, so it does, for what this means, it doesn't actually matter, because if you redeem a BAP token, the vision of this system is to create a virtual version of these shirts in the virtual world that emerges, right? And so we're gonna have to do this after the fact, but that's kind of where our heads are at. Like, if you redeem a token, you get the actual shirt in real life, and then you get the virtual shirt for whatever virtual world comes to Ethereum. And so if that world does ever indeed come, we will be issuing virtual versions of these shirts in the virtual world that comes.
Absolutely. So you sort of get the best of both. Now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the last thing to say is when we think about additional seasons, David, and again, this is just season one, so we're seeing how it goes, and we'll use information to iterate on whatever season two is.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also thinking about tiers of scarcity
Right.
for some of these items, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this first, the Ethscape shirt, is a legendary shirt, right? Because there's only 50 of them.
There's only 50.
So what are the other classes?
Yeah, so for those who are gamers will find themselves very, very familiar with this system. So it's just like finding loot on the ground or loot in like a chest box or some random loot box or whatever. There's legendary, epic, rare, and commons, right? And so legendary's got 50 items, epic's got 150 items, rare has 250 items, and then common has 500 items. And so as we go through these different seasons, each season will have like a different rarity, right? Like one will be a common item and it'll be like a hoodie that's mostly black or something relatively simple. And then, you know, in the future, there will be future rare items as well that look as dope as this one, right? And so there's different tiers of scarcity because there's different like qualities of goods that you can produce with different like values in how the graphic looks. And I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we will see how this experiment goes. Dave and I are super excited about it. Um, maybe only a couple sell on Uniswap, in which case, look, dude, I'm still excited about this. We'll see what happens. I know when we originally talked about, the curve having one ETH like equal one shirt, that was at a time when ETH was a little less expensive than it is today.
That was
so guys,
$200.
Right. So guys, the last thing I'll say about this is this is kind of one of those things that's not for everybody, in the Bankless Nation. This is sort of, scarce merch. It's expensive, right? These shirts are super high quality. So it gets you out of kind of the fast fashion motif of buying cheap shirts from like a Gap or like an H&M or whatever. So there's that, but they're still expensive, right? So there's going to be a certain group of people who are really excited about that and drawn into that. And there's others for which we'll launch like a merch store, a Bankless merch store, and you'll have a way to buy other Bankless swag and represent the nation that way. But we hope you enjoy this fun experiment, guys.
Yeah.
Like, just like have fun with it. That's what I think my favorite thing about crypto is there's something new every single day, like to do. It feels like one giant video game anyway, right? Like, or you're like Mario and you're like here and you're leveling up and you're collecting the coins. And my parents have no idea what I do, like how I spend my time. But you guys do, because you're in this space too. David, anything else you want to say about the BAP and about the Ethscape shirt?
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about fast fashion. I don't really want to go into that here, but there is two posts that's going out. There is the introductory Bankless Seasons post, which talks about fast fashion, what it is, and how scarce apparel can fix that. And so I kind of walk through the narrative there. And at the end of it forwards you off to season 0 launch, which is the second post, which is also going out. So there's two separate things to read. One's kind of like the explainer of the whole Bankless Apparel Seasons campaign. And then the other one is specifically season 0 and all the details to go in with that. So that's in your inboxes. And in the show notes. So check them out.
All right. Well, here we go. That was topic 1. David, before we get into the other things we want to talk about in State of the Nation, we should talk about our sponsors first. Do you want to start with Polymath? or Polymarket, excuse me.
Polymarket, yeah. So
Yeah.
Polymarket, another new sponsor of the State of the Nation. Polymarket is a prediction market platform on Ethereum. And for those that don't know, prediction markets are markets where you can go to express an opinion about what you think is the most likely outcome of the future, right? And so, sports games, presidential elections, future crypto prices, these are all like viable contenders for being able to express an opinion for what you think will happen. So like, there's the market gives you odds based on like, will Donald Trump or Joe Biden win the presidency? And if you think that the odds that the market is offering you from Polymarket are off from what should be correct, you can go and express an opinion and take a bet. And then in the future, as more and more people do this, you can just go to poly.market and look at the bets just for your own information. It's like, okay, the Polymarket is gauging that coronavirus will be over in 4 months. And so I can plan my life based on that, because the people that are betting have skin in the game. They are going to win or lose money based off of whether they're incorrect or not. So they have a really elegant UX, UI. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. If anyone's gone to predictit.org, it's very much like that. So if you are into betting on the future events of the world, check them out at poly.market. You can send an email with Bankless in the subject line after you make a bet, and they will cover all of your gas costs. And so go to poly.market, check out the available markets there, tweet out if you make a trade, and then again, email them at hello@poly.market with the subject line Bankless to get your gas costs reimbursed.
They've also got some pretty cool DeFi markets in there, if I remember correctly. But David, dude, you're on a roll, man. Why don't you just take the second sponsor too?
Take this home? Let's do it.
Maybe it's your shirt. You're on a roll.
All right. So our last sponsor of the State of the Nation is AMPLFORTH. AMPLFORTH is a base money experiment on Ethereum. It's a pretty unique token where instead of the price going up and down, the supply goes up and down. And so it's a variable supply asset on Ethereum. And they're marketing themselves as a base money currency, right? An M0. And so I think the most interesting thing about AMPLFORTH is that you can denominate debts in this thing and be comfortable paying it back because the price never goes too far away from $1. It's not a stable coin, but it is a trustless M0 to denominate debts in. So you can check them out at amplforth.org. They have a cool dashboard where you can learn more about the economics. Do your own research. I think it's a fantastic experiment, but be careful.
All right, man. All right, topic 2. We want to talk about ETH2, I think. So, all right, so we're in the bull market now. ETH is it charged past that 353 price. So I got unlocked from jail. It charged past some pretty
previously very strong resistances.
Yeah. Exactly. And it just charged through it. It hit almost 400. And
it did hit 400. It got up to 415 for a hot second before that.
Wait, it did?
Yeah, 415.
Oh, I was supposed to tweet something out at 403. Oops.
You missed that one.
I missed that one. But it should sustain past 403 for a while before.
It
didn't do that. Okay. So, but we haven't even seen ETH2 yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's coming. Let's talk test nets, man. What's going on there?
Yeah, the morning of this recording, the Medasha testnet just went live. It sounds like it had a small little hiccup out the door where not very many validators found the testnet, but turns out that solved itself over time.
Wait, so it's Medasha? It's not Medalla?
It's not Medalla. It's spelled Medalla. It's pronounced Medasha.
Wow, what language is that?
I think it's Spanish.
Okay.
I think there was some game of telephone where we lost the original spelling or original pronunciation. I don't know, but Mariano Conti pronounced it Medasha, and so I trust.
Oh, he's the pro. Yeah, I trust Mariano.
Yeah, he knows. And so that is live right now. And so what this means is that if no hiccups happen, if no bugs happen between now and 3 months from now, and what is it? It's August 4th. So August, September, October, November. Did I do that right? November.
Yep.
So in November, if after 3 months of this testnet running, if it's still running without any bugs, then phase 0 goes live. And so you can also check out on our sponsor, poly.market, that people are giving 2-to-1 odds that no bugs happen currently.
So they're betting 2-to-1 odds that ETH will ship this year?
ETH phase 0 will ship in November. Yeah. In 2020. Yeah. In 2020. Right.
Interesting.
Right. And
Yeah.
so people are starting to price in the success of phase 0, right? And we
Okay.
have the final test net up and running. And again, if everything goes according to plan, which the market is giving 2-to-1 odds that it will, phase 0 launches this year, by the end of this year.
That's weird. I was told ETH2 would never ship,
Yeah,
like
I was
ever.
told that too. I've sold that every single day for the last 5 years.
All right. Well, maybe some people are like, let's believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. So what about folks who've been kind of sleeping on this for a little bit? They're just now kind of waking up to DeFi, Ethereum, probably price got their attention. Look, everyone's lives are busy, right? So before I was doing crypto full time, right? Like, I mean, I had other stuff going on. I wasn't constantly monitoring the status of test nets, crypto test nets, right? We should just go a quick recap of the various phases that we're talking about
Yep.
in ETH2 and explain what it is really quick. So I'm going to show a roadmap, David, and maybe you could kind of start by explaining what this initial phase is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So what we're really talking about is not the full ETH2 in its final form. What we're talking about is phase 0. First, I'll show this one. This is a more simple roadmap, I think, and we'll get to the other.
Okay, so yeah, we are currently at Ethereum 1.x. That's the Ethereum 1.x. X stands for the fact that we constantly update it. We add new things because both Ethereum 2.0 is progressing, but also Ethereum 1 is also progressing separately. They both have progress. However, for ETH2, the first is phase 0, the beacon chain. That's like the heartbeat of the whole entire system. I kind of like to imagine this thing as like an organism that is growing, and it grows from the center out, and the heartbeat is at the very center, right? Once the heartbeat is stabilized and predictable and able to be depended on, then the heartbeat turns into more complex things like, extremities, arms, legs, whatever, more organs. But first off, phase 0 is the heartbeat. That's where the beacon chain gets the entropy, which is really important in the rest of the phases, because you need entropy to make things ungameable. And then this is also where the deposit contract lives, right? So at some point when, if this testnet succeeds without bugs for 3 months, this deposit contract opens up. So people on the ETH1 chain send their Ether to this deposit contract, and it gets redeemed on phase 0 beacon chain, which makes it ETH2 ETH, right? Then that's up and running for a while. Then we introduce shard chains. And this is where we start to get scale, right? And so not just do we have the main beacon chain, but we also have the shard chains that are, there's going to be 64 of them, and they all connect back to the beacon chain. And then they also cross-link. And so that's where we go from just having one Ethereum blockchain to having 64 of them. So like increasing throughput by like a theoretical 64x. And I think it's actually even more than that. But there's 64 shards of Ethereum running, and then the beacon chain coalesces them into one. And that's great, because that's kind of the issue of gas today. That's where we solve the gas problems on the L1. But we don't yet have contract execution. So we can't actually do DeFi things on phase 1 yet, because there needs to be a virtual machine. And that's where phase 2 comes in. Phase 2 brings in the EWASM virtual machine. We currently have the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, running 1.x. And the EVM runs on Solidity, which is great, but it's also limiting. And that's where EWASM comes in. So we have a secondary virtual machine, which runs on contracting language that is more common. There's more people, more developers out there, like your Google devs, your Amazon devs. EWASM is probably going to be the virtual machine that brings them in. It makes it very easy to build on Ethereum, which is great, because Ethereum needs development and Ethereum needs developers. And we all of a sudden have way more developers available to Ethereum. And so in that phase, that's like the final phase. There's more innovation that goes on, but phase 2 is basically all of Ethereum 2.0. And once that's here, we're done.
Yeah, absolutely. Good overview. So the Delphi folks, they're kind of an analyst group, and they talk primarily to sort of Wall Street institution types. And they put out a fantastic report on Ethereum's birthday last week that we'll include in the show notes. You should absolutely check out. But there's this image in the report that shows exactly what you're saying with those phases, David, and then also kind of timelines too, right? So what we've been talking about, the test nets, the Madasha testnet that we were just talking about, that's kind of a Q4 ETA, and that's that phase 0, right? And then we're looking at a shard chain in the phase 1, which is probably 2021-ish, and then This is really exciting. So this wasn't in Preston's slide that you just showed, but this is a phase 1.5 that's kind of in between phase 1 and phase 2. And the reason this is exciting is because what it provides is essentially a migration of the original ETH 1.0 chain that David was just talking about into ETH 2.0. So it moves ETH 1.0 into a shard on Ethereum 2. And what happens there is super important from the perspective of Ether, the asset, because at that point in time, we can get rid of proof of work, right? So proof of work, Ethereum, Ether issuance is about 4% per year right now, right? And that's going to continue. That's even going to continue into phase 1, where we institute and start doing proof of stake. There'll be some inflation there, probably around the 1% range. So Ether issuance will increase briefly from 4% to about 5%, potentially somewhere around that timeline. But when we get to phase 1.5, the entire Ethereum ecosystem, the entire Ethereum nation becomes secure just by proof of stake, and issuance drops like off a cliff. So it drops to about 1%. It's variable based on the amount of people staking, and also based on what we've talked about a lot, which is EIP 1559, which could actually burn a portion of the Ether based on usage. But so all of this leads to is at the end of this, when you get to phase 1.5, which could be 2022 or so, you've got a very low issuance Ethereum that offers higher security than the original ETH main chain. And I think that will enshrine Ether, the asset, into a store of value, right? The monetary policy will become
if there was
much more widely known. There's no doubt, right? This has always been the plan, and it's finally being executed. In fact, I think there's somewhere in this report where they talk about that. Let me find that in just a minute. But what were you going to say, David?
Yeah. So ETH 1.5, the phase 1.5 is where the Ethereum L1 chain, the current chain, starts to be secured by Ethereum 2.0. So it's where these chains start to get melded. And so that's when we are able to strip away miners. And maybe there's some small miners left on the chain. But the point is that very quickly does the ETH1 chain become verified by the ETH2 chain, by the proof of stake consensus on ETH2, which means we no longer need miners, which means we no longer need that extra issuance to pay the miners, because security under proof of stake is much more inexpensive. And so both chains will simultaneously be verified and validated by the ETH2 stakers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing we get in phase 1.5, of course, is a migration of all of DeFi, all of the apps. And then we also get some pretty large scalability benefits. Not the full scalability of ETH2, but in layer 2, we can actually start storing some additional data. So if folks listening are familiar with all of the layer 2 tech that's being built out for Ethereum today, specifically, there's been a slew of new layer 2 options, as Reddit kind of put out a request and said, hey, ETH community, can you help us out? We're trying to scale on Ethereum. We want to do tokens for all of our subreddits, but we need it to be super fast. How can you do that? And the Ethereum community came back with a ton, like 30 different answers to that. All of them have high potential. A number of them are good answers. Yeah. Yes. And those become ultra powerful when we get to phase 1.5, because we can start storing some of that data in the secure ETH2 chain itself. So super exciting. And what's exciting to me when I saw this report? I've honestly never seen a report like this, like a report from an analyst who's talking to institutions, get it right. They've never gotten it right. Like, they've never understood what Ethereum is. This is the first report I've read, which is like, cool, you got it right. And you're actually explaining this in a way that institutions can understand, right? So they talked here about ETH2, proof of stake. What does it bring? Proof of stake is more economically feasible, enhanced monetary policy, minimum necessary issuance is something we talk about often to describe Ethereum's monetary policy. It turns Ether into a staking asset. Well, that's triple point asset. That's what we've been talking about here.
It burns for a long time.
It burns transaction fees. I mean, the analyst probably reads Bankless, I'm going to say, right? And anyway, these sorts of things that we've been talking about in the Bankless Nation are starting to get translated into language that, quite honestly, like, Yeah, I don't like, I'm never going to write a 30-page analyst paper like this, right? It's just, it's boring to me.
But you helped.
But sure, like, right? So some of the ideas that we've talked about in the Bankless community form the bottom layer of these sorts of analyst papers. And these analyst papers are now getting translated into a language that institutions can start understanding. And now they can understand Ether as an asset. And now they can understand what the hell's going on with Ethereum 2.0. So I'm also excited because of that.
It took 3 years of bear market memes to generate those memes. And now they're finally being leveraged, right? Like partly when I see the Ether price run to $400, I'm like, oh, great. Like the world's finally pricing in the memes we've generated over the last 2 years.
Kind of, right? And, you know, people, I think people, like you and I, when we talk about memes, we take a very high view of what a meme actually is, right? It's not just a, you know, a GIF somebody puts out on Twitter that sort of goes viral, right? Exactly. It's a shared story that social groups start to believe, and it becomes the forming narrative for what the, you know, what, in this case, what the particular asset class is. So these memes really are the base layer, and this is how those memes get translated into regular language.
Like Bitcoin's meme is a non-sovereign, uncapped store of value asset. And it becomes that if everyone believes that that's what it is, right? And it's going to do a great job at doing that if everyone believes that it will do a great job of doing that. And that's how it becomes reality, right? And so with like burning Ether in EIP 1559 or as a capital asset or as a store of value, it will become that because we all think that it will become that.
Right. Absolutely. And it gets tested through the fires. Like good memes get tested, right? So, you know, it's not enough for a meme to be out there and for a bunch of people to believe it. It has to pass through the fires, right? So an example of Bitcoin passing through the fires, well, it held up relative to other crypto assets in the bear market as sort of a reserve asset. So it's sort of like we passed through the fire. But there was a time where people thought that Bitcoin was going to be peer-to-peer cash, like a money system, a payment type layer system. And that was the meme, right? I can send you Bitcoin. No one can stop me. David, peer-to-peer basis.
Pay for coffee.
Yeah, it decentralized PayPal. That was a meme back in 2013, right? Pay for my coffee in Starbucks. It didn't pass through the fire. And so the meme actually died. So these memes actually get verified.
They're based on fundamentals, right?
They're based on fundamentals because they have to pass through those fires. And
in the same way that like speculation on something is speculation on its fundamentals. You don't get speculation for speculation's sake. Speculation is built on something, and memes are built on something in the same way.
Absolutely. All right, David, last topic. This is kind of a fun one. So we've switched into full bull mode. Right. So I wrote a post about this on Monday.
The entire ecosystem has,
The entire ecosystem, the switch has been flipped. We're in bull mode now, bull market now for crypto. Eric Voorhees called it even in our, podcast Monday. Joey Krug called it the week before. Chris Berninsky hinted at it.
All before he was the first one in my mind.
Absolutely. So it's not just us saying this. We're kind of reaching consensus, and price is kind of showing you breaking through these walls, and showing you bull market. So
bull market meme is on.
Bull market meme is on. So how do we get into a bull market mentality, and like what is that? Because there's a bear market mentality that you need to have, right, and understand and adjust for. But there's also like a bull market mentality, and I've seen people lose more in the bull market, a lot more in a bull market than in a bear market. Like bull markets can be way more dangerous than bear markets. Can you talk about what the bull market mentality is and how we should be thinking about this?
Yeah, and markets are a reflection of the participants participating in them, right? And so when we say it's a bull market, what we're really saying is that everyone who's participating in price discovery around Ether, price discovery around Bitcoin, has a bull market mentality, because it's the mentality that creates the bull market, not the other way around, right? So it's the mentality that comes first. And like one of the core characteristics that differentiates a bear market from a bull market is that like in a bull market, good news moves the price. In a bear market, good news doesn't move anything. Depressed. Like people are depressed. That's literally the word depression means that like good news doesn't mean anything to you. In a bull market, good news doesn't only mean something, but it probably means more than what it actually means, right? In bull markets, good news really moves the price. And that's because it's reflected in our mentality. And so everyone who's participating in price discovery, which means you are buying or selling or trading anything, your mentality is shifted. You are no longer a bear market mentality. You are now a bull market mentality. And you need to account for this because who you are changes in a bull market. Your personality changes based on the mentality that you have. And so there's a couple things that's like, it's really important to remember as we go through this bull market, because like the biggest thing that is going to cost you is you got too greedy, right? The biggest thing that is going to cost you is your hubris, right? You need to be modest. You need to be humble, and you need to accept that you're not going to win all the gains, but in order to, if you were to chase all of the gains and trying to get the maximum amount of gains possible, that's how you lose everything, right? That's how you lose everything. And I'm speaking in general terms, but like there's a couple of lessons that I learned that I want to share, and starting from last cycle, right? And I feel like I'm coming full circle to like where I started in crypto, where I came in after the first major run up in 2017. So Ether went from like $50 to $400 back to $170, and then it floated up to $300. That's what brought me in. And that was like relatively late into the hype cycle, right? Like the ICO boom was already in full mania. And so, I buy Ether, I start investing in tokens, all that happens. And then my Blockfolio number goes up and up and up. And I think like I'm a fucking genius.
David, when you bought those tokens, like how much did you know at that point in time?
I mean, so little. Like I couldn't have told you anything about the qualities of Ether as an asset that I know today. Zero things. But also the ecosystem didn't know them. But like
for sure.
I was months old when it comes to the crypto world.
So you're like, price is going up. This thing is hot. I don't fully know what it is, but like
I'm playing the game.
I'm playing the game. I'm in the game. I know there's something here, and I'm putting my chips on this, and I'm risking it, right? Like I'm headed west. These are my chips. I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out once I start investing.
Yeah, okay, it didn't take me a few months to figure it out. It took me like 3 years and counting. Like I'm still figuring it out. All
right. So then what happened?
So I'm watching my Blockfolio go up and up and up. And like for a kid that was previously a broke student trying to get into physical therapy school, like I made more money than I ever thought that I would at that age, right? And like in hindsight, it wasn't all that much. But at the time, like each person has their own number as to what means to them. And my mistake was that I started spending more without paying off my credit card, right? That was my big mistake.
You saw those numbers going up in Blockfolio and you're like, net worth going up. That means I am richer, so I can spend more each month.
Which is a true statement if you sell. You don't get to spend more without selling your profits. If you are making profits and then you are going to Amazon and buying a boat, like you need to sell, because that's where you're getting the money to fund your endeavors, right? And so you don't get to have both. You don't get to have number go up and also I buy more things. Like you need to choose one. Like okay,
so are you saying like basically you can't treat those Blockfolio numbers as real numbers? Like they're not real.
They're not real.
It's just not, like ignore your feelings, ignore the euphoria. You're going to be checking price like 20 times a day maybe. But you have to ignore that. You're not any wealthier until you sell. Is that what you're selling?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
You don't get to spend more until that dollar sign shows up in your bank account. Like that, until that moment, you didn't have any more money than you did previously. It doesn't matter what your Blockfolio says.
Okay. So here's another mistake I feel like people make in the bull market. That's a huge one. I'm so glad you said that. So another mistake is sometimes they sell too early.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah. Right. So people are like, oh my God, ETH just went from 200 to 400. Like
I'm out.
DeFi is in a bubble. This is like, I'm calling the top, and they call the top. And then, a week or two later, they're right. Cause ETH drops down to, 300 and they're like, see, I told you. Right. And it's on the upside in the bull market that so many people miss out on, like all of the gains, all of the opportunity costs that could have been theirs because they also sold too early. So how do you prevent that? So you're saying, step one is don't live like it's real money. Just keep your standard of living the same as if it doesn't even exist until you sell. But also, like, how do you prevent not selling before like this whole thing has been realized, the full cycle plays out?
Right. And this is really, really hard, right? Because this partly involves timing the market. But there are signals if you are really paying attention to them and you're doing your research as to how like market cycles work. There are signals that you can tap into, but again, it's all subjectivity at the end of the day. And what also makes this really hard is that every time a token pumps, it looks exactly like the last time it just pumped, right? And so Ether goes from 50 to 300. Then it goes from 100 to 450. Then it goes from like 300 up to 700. Then it goes from like 500, where it dropped, up to like 900. Then it goes from 900 to 1400. Turns out 1400 was the last time that it pumped, but it could have been any of
if
the
you were
other
there,
times.
it didn't feel like that,
It didn't
right?
feel like it. Like when I saw $1,400 Ether, I was thinking $2,000 Ether like the next week, right?
That's how psychology works. That's how your brain always
That's
works.
how it works. And so like you don't know, all pumps look exactly the same, and you don't know which one's the last one, because this is a game. At the end of the day, a mania, a bull market, a bubble is a game of musical chairs, right? And so at some point the music stops and it looks like all the other times that it pumped, but you just don't know, right? And so this is fun because you get to play musical chairs. Like you get to, and it's a game of chicken. It's like a game of how long can you go before you sell. And if you sell too late, you lose. And so at some point in time, you have to, you don't really want to play the market. Like like Ether goes from like 200 to 400, and then you short it and it goes from 400 down to 320. And then you're like, I'm a genius. And then it runs up to $600 and you're out. And then you're bitter, and then you never get back in. You lost all your money while there's this bear market or bull market. Like you don't want to be that guy. However, you also don't want to be the guy that like sells too late, right? And so you have to answer to yourself, like, does the money that I've just made in this bull market meaningfully impact my life? If I sell right now, how much better is my life? Do I pay off my credit card, pay off my mortgage, pay off my car, whatever? Like I leave the weight of debt. If you have the option to like remove all debt from your life at the middle of the cycle, that might be a good time for you to get. Like it, and I'm sorry if that cuts off, 2x, 3x, 4x gains after that. But at the same time, you locked in a meaningful life change, and you're never going to forget it. And you're always going to thank yourself that you did that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a great point. So I think there are a couple strategies that people can use. So we've talked about dollar cost averaging into crypto, right? Where you got a paycheck, you take a slice of that paycheck, and you're like, this is allocated to crypto buys. You can also dollar cost average out. So you do the same thing, except in reverse. And you could do that in two ways. You could do that one on a time horizon. You say, okay, bull market mode, every month, I'm going to sell a little bit, right? Percentage out. I'm going to take money off the table. You can also, some people I've seen, even very sophisticated investors do the same thing. It's not a play just for, retail and, simpletons. Sophisticated investors do this where, every time ETH doubles, I sell a portion. Every time ETH doubles, I sell 10%. Make that your rule. Another rule you can have for yourself going in. Okay, so going into this, you need to have your rules. You need to have your game plan established, like now, because as David was saying, in the moment, you're not going to the euphoria is going to take over. And when you see 1,000, you're going to be like 10,000's on the table, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you're going to know that in your heart.
Right. And if you make rules while Ether is like going from $5,000 to $10,000, they're going to be different rules than if you had made them at the very genesis when you were fucking sober.
Yes. Yes. Bull drunk, I guess, is maybe the term. So that's what you have to do, is establish those rules getting in. Another rule you could establish is, once it hits this amount, right, I'm going to sell some portion. But I also want to frame this. Okay. So we started Bankless. The entire principle of what this is in the Bankless movement, in the Bankless Nation, is at some point, if we're right, here's the thing, you don't have to sell. Okay. Now, I want you to park that, right? So everything that David just said about, look, if you got credit card debt, if you got student loans, you make a meaningful amount, and things are going crazy, don't lean in. Everything that David said is true, right? But the thesis is also true, that we think the Bankless thesis, the Bankless belief is, over time, you want to start thinking about your denomination for what wealth is, right? Right now, everyone's denomination for wealth basically is US dollar denominated, $1 million, right? US dollar denominated. It's because we pay for things in US dollars. But when you start to get into the Bankless world, your bottom denominator starts to change, and you're like, well, what if US dollars actually isn't the reserve currency in this Bankless country? What if US dollars weakens as a reserve currency for the world? And then what you need to find is, what are the reserve currencies in this parallel universe that we call crypto, right? And that's really been the thesis of the Bankless program from day one, is you want to find what the crypto monies are. and you want to build into what the crypto monies are. And the crypto monies in crypto are very clearly Ether and Bitcoin. At least it's clear to me. Some people don't believe the first.
Makes sense to me.
A lot of people believe the second. They don't believe the first. And look, it's possible some other contender could rise up the ranks and be a crypto money. I don't think we're close to that yet. So the way I think about these bull markets is not just in appreciation of US dollars, right? That's just one denominator, but that's not the Bankless Nation denominator. The Bankless Nation denominator is Ether and Bitcoin, right? Is that increasing? Because that might be long-term wealth over time. And when you start thinking about these things in cycles, like once you've done a couple cycles, like Eric Voorhees, 2011, that's how he thinks.
All the cycles?
Oh, I'm going to tell you, he thinks in decades now.
Right.
And he's like, what do I care about US dollars? I'm only taking US dollars out that I need to spend immediately. Like, I'm not speaking for Eric here, but I'm pretty sure this is how he thinks. Like the majority of my wealth, I'm going to keep in crypto native reserve currency assets that are going to continue to appreciate. Over these cycles. So think about your denominators. Your denominators should be crypto money. Even if you're doing things with like DeFi tokens, these other things, and doing narrative plays and that sort of thing, come back to what's your denominator? Is it US dollars? Is it also these reserve currencies? That's how you start to make long-term bets in this space and last through these cycles.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a helicopter. So yeah, DeFi tokens are not going to trade against dollars. Like SNX, the Synthetics Network token, YFI, like the YFI token, their main trading pair is Ether, right? And so they are going to appreciate or depreciate versus Ether, not versus US dollar. Ether, and all these things are going to appreciate versus or depreciate versus the US dollar, but they trade against Ether. Like Ether is the base currency. And so, I don't have too much evidence to support this, but like especially YFI, which 98% of all trading volume is between YFI and Ether, or excuse me, it's YFI and Ether. When Ether goes up, YFI will also go up. When Ether goes down, YFI will also go down because it's denominated in Ether. And more of these things, I think, are just going to choose. Like we saw this in 2017. Like say what, like Bitcoiners, maybe this is contentious, say what you will, but the 2017 ICO mania, the 2017 bull market was because of Ethereum, because of the ICO mania. And Ether, the asset, went through the roof because everyone had to buy Ether because the ICOs were denominated in ETH. DeFi tokens are the same thing. Save for Link, which I think gets the majority of its volume from US dollar. Like DeFi tokens, the mania that we've seen already, mania quote unquote, this coming out of depression, is denominated in Ether, right? And so if you are trading your DeFi tokens, denominating in dollars might be a mistake. Like you might need to be denominating in the bankless monies, which is our Ether and Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the people who are saying things like DeFi could moon without Ether have been strangely silent over the past week and a half.
Weird.
Right? So some of these things, look guys, some of these things, you're just making bets, right? You're thinking through the fundamentals and you're making bets. And anyone could point to any time horizon or data point and say, yo, David, what you said is a lie because here's YFI going up and Ether's going down, right? So what you said is not true, right? And they're looking at a 2-week time horizon or something. Zoom out, guys. Yep. That I think is the last maybe piece of advice we have for the bull market mentality is you have to zoom out and look at the long run. And, a couple weeks, a couple months, even sometimes, depending on the cycle you're in, a couple years of data doesn't tell you much. You got to zoom out. This is a decades long journey and process. Lifetime long. And think about it in those terms of time horizons. And I think you'll do pretty well in this space. Everybody who has had that long-term outlook has done really well. Done really well, right? Yeah. And it's about, David said it earlier, it's about staying in the game, right? Marathon, not a sprint. The thing you don't want to do is do stupid stuff like, go in debt, take margin, that sort of thing, and face the prospect of like getting totally destroyed if there's a sudden crash, because that eliminates you from the table.
Staying in the game.
Stay in the game. Stack the reserve currency assets, stay in the game. Maybe stack some BAPs while you're at it, right?
Stack some BAPs. Stacking BAPs.
All right, David. I think that's probably it for the show. That's it from us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me, sir.
All right, so action items, we will put a link in here to the Uniswap exchange, and there'll also be a link to the post that explains what we're doing with these Etherscape shirts. You can pick one up and be wearing it like David and I are today. This has been State of the Nation, episode 8. Thank you so much for hanging with us.